It is 7:01, and I call this meeting of the Southwest Licking Local Board of Education to order. It is May 20th, 2021. I would like to recognize all our visitors here and those watching at home, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning, this is Mrs. Yost Connection Club, and we will be doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was awesome. All right, Mr. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Engel.
Here.
Mrs. Moore.
Here.
Mrs. Spindler.
Here.
Mr. Ziny.
Here.
Mr. Vincent.
Here, a quorum is present. We will continue. Public participation. Seeing none, we will adopt the agenda as printed. If someone would like to make a motion.
Motion to adopt the agenda as printed. Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Jones.
Mrs. Spindler.
Yes.
Mrs. Engel.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Ziny.
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes, that passes. We'll move on to request to speak on agenda items from the Teamsters. From Southwest Licking Education Association. Oops, I jumped ahead. I apologize. We have a presentation. So we are at 2A, and I would like to welcome Karen Daniel Hamburg to come talk to the board.
Okay, sounds good. Is the presentation, should I plug in somewhere with it? Or is it, I know it's on the board docs.
Yeah, I uploaded it.
I was saying I was
It's on the agenda.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Well, my name is Karen Daniel Hamburg. I work for a company called Cooperative Strategies. We are a national K-12 planning and demographics company. So we do things like this all over the country. Lucky for me, I live in Hilliard, so this was a quick and easy drive rather than getting on a plane. So I'm very happy to be here. If you go ahead and move forward to the next one.
I think they're trying to find how to put it in presentation mode.
Oh, okay. So I am going to go over the enrollment projections first, and then I'll get into the housing study. The housing is a little more exciting than the enrollment projection, so just bear with me as we go through this part. I don't mind if it's not working.
No, I said actually look it up. So the second you have the PowerPoint answer, you can answer.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So with our enrollment projections, we use the cohort survival method. It uses historical birth data as well as historical student data to age kids through the system. Ooh, I think I'm under the knife. Oh.
No, that went to the next. Right now, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, that went to the whole next page. I guess we're gonna have to do some manual for you. I apologize.
No, it's fine. It does not matter to me one bit. So what the cohort survival method is if you look at that graphic over there, we are looking at the number of kids as they move through the system year after year, the number of kids we're retaining. So in that graphic, you can see it says 100 kindergartners. It would be a survival ratio of 105% because there's 105 first graders the next year, and then that same class is moving on to second grade, and in this case, it would be 110. So that's the methodology we're using with this one. You want to try it? Oh, that's perfect. So the table on this slide shows the historical enrollment district-wide by grade. So it is conditionally formatted, so anything in that darker blue is going to show lower numbers, and anything in that lighter, it's like almost white in this case, it's a little bit red, is going to be those higher numbers. This slide is the same information, just broken down into grade bands, so you can get an idea of where we've been, where we're kind of going. K through 3, you can see there's a been significant increase in students over the last 10 years, same with pretty much every other grade level. So over the last 10 years, we have seen an increase of 561 students. And it's doing that on its own. Okay. This slide shows the birth data that we used. This comes from the Ohio Department of Health, and what it shows is the number of births by year, by zip code, based on where the mother lives. So if I live, let's say, in Beechwood Trails, and I have a baby at Grant Hospital downtown, I would still be counted in the 43062 zip code. So that's what we're using there. I apologize, this thing keeps switching on me. But the birth data is a direct input that's used to project kindergarten enrollment 5 years later. So any kids that you're seeing born this year, we're going to expect them in school 5 years from now. This information shows the transfers, homeschool, and community school information. The top table shows the transfers out, so you can see the number of kids by grade each year that are transferring out of the system for whatever reason. And then the bottom shows the number of homeschools kids by year, as well as the number of kids that attend community schools, and that's just the ODE's word for charter schools. These are the Licking County and Fairfield County population estimates. Something to note about this one is this is for the entire county. So you are not expected to get by yourselves over like 12,000 new residents over the next 5 years. That is county-wide.
Okay.
And Fairfield County, another thing to note, is looking like it's seeing a lot of increase. Your district doesn't take in too much. Fairfield County, it's really just like the southern couple miles down there. And then I'm going to get into the projected enrollment. So what this shows is your historical enrollment in the red. That red line is your historical, so you can see you've gone from just under 4,000 kids to nearly 4,500 where we are now. Moving forward, we are projecting continued growth. So I can't imagine that would be a shock to anybody. This slide is by grade, the projected enrollment. So like I said, we are projecting continued growth here. If you look, you can kind of see grades start moving through the system. The one I want to note is the kindergartners for next year. We are projecting a pretty big class next year at 410. You can see year after year, as they move through the system, that class gets bigger and bigger. 10 years from now, we are projecting that class that they are going to be the class of 2030-31. Oh no, that's not true. It's like 2034. But when they are in high school, they're going to be a class of almost 560.
That's crazy.
Yes, it absolutely is. That is unprecedented.
Holy cow.
This slide shows the same information, just again broken up by grade bands. We are projecting an increase of 875 students over the next 5 years. And then looking 10 years out, we're projecting almost 1,600 additional students.
Wow.
It's coming. This slide here shows the projected enrollment as compared to the historical enrollment. So it's pretty much just those two tables put up next to each other. Let's see if I can get this. Nope. I do want to highlight a couple of things. If you look, the class of, I believe, 2025, 26. I think I lost control.
The battery that might be dying, why was that?
Oh.
So,
Would you mind going back?
would you like us to go forward or back?
Backward, please. Thank you. So the class of 25, 26, you can kind of see them moving through the system. They are a smaller class, but they are getting bigger and bigger over time. The next one I want to point out is actually a bubble on the opposite end. They are a smaller class. That is the class of 29, 30. You can see when they started kindergarten 17, 18. Oh, it's working now. They were pretty small, and you can see them move through the system. They remain fairly small as compared to the rest of the cohorts. And then that last one, again, this is our next year's kindergartners. We are projecting them to be pretty high, and you can see as they move through the system, they just keep gaining and gaining kids. So it is important to continue to monitor these enrollment trends and birth trends as you move forward. There are a couple of things that can play into this that aren't really captured within enrollment projections. That would be boundary changes. Any new schools opening, programs, we have a couple different bullet points for programs here. Any
Love
changes in
technology.
grade configurations, unemployment, pandemics is the big one. That is, nobody could have predicted what would have happened the last 2 years. So that is one that's nearly unpredictable. As well as any unplanned housing activity, and we'll get onto that in a moment. Are there any questions about the enrollment projections before I get into the
Just,
housing?
did the colors matter? I'm a little colorblind, so like when I see I just see blue, I don't really see different shades.
Okay.
Did the different colors matter? Like the different shades, am I missing something by not being able to see that is my question.
All it's doing is highlighting where our lower classes are and where our bigger
Okay.
classes are.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else on the enrollment projections? All right. So the other part of this study was doing a student potential analysis. This is kind of our biggest housing study that we do. And you most definitely were a perfect candidate for it. You are growing. I have been coming here for the last 10 years, and I will tell you the first time I ever came here, I looked around and I said, this is not going to look like this in 20 years, and so far, my prediction has come true.
Right.
It is wild out here, I will be the first to say that. So what a housing study does is it allows you to measure the impact that housing has on student enrollment. This is a completely different methodology from our enrollment projections. We do use both kind of together in tandem to provide some checks and balances. We do make sure that they align, because if one is way off from the other, there is something wrong. In your case, the numbers aren't exactly the same for the first 10 years, but they are very similar. So our methodology we use for housing studies is based on a student yield. And what a student yield is just the ratio of students divided by the number of housing units. So in our graphic over here, we have 10 houses and 5 kids, and that would be a student yield of 0.5. What that pretty much means is we're seeing about 1 kid, K through 12, for every 2 homes in the district. Now, this is not your yield, that's just my example.
Okay.
You're pretty close to 0.5, but I'll get to that. The map on the left here shows your student density, so anything in the red-orange colors are going to show higher student density. You can see you have some hotspots just right around Pataskala Elementary School, as well as Etna Elementary School, and then a little bit smaller of a hotspot right around the current high school and middle school. The map on the right shows the parcels by the year that they were built. So anything that's like kind of green or even turns into yellow are homes that were built earlier, like probably 1900 to about 1950 or so. Once we get to yellow, it's showing like 1950 and beyond. So anything in that red is going to show homes that were built more recently. So I was talking about those yields a minute ago. What we have done with this is plotted all of your student yields based on the year that the home is built. That is, in essence, what this study does, is it takes the age of home and applies the yield. We create a yield model, which I'll get to on the next slide. Well, there it is. We create a yield model based on those average yields by the year built, and you can see there is a trend with it, and we apply it to every single home in the district based on where they are in our timeline. So if you look on the table on the left, the far right column of that where it says total, you can kind of see that when a home is built, we're seeing decent yields. I mean, it's higher than I've seen in a lot of places. It's about 0.5 or so. And then as you move through time, so if you go up, you can see the yields increase until we get to about year 12. That's really pretty standard for districts around here, at least. What we have seen is between year 12 or maybe 11 and 13 or so is when we're seeing our peak yield for most districts, and that is the same for you. Once we get past that peak yield, we are seeing a trend of kind of lowering yields. So it makes sense, right? People move in. Sometimes they move in when they have kindergartners, they get older and older, they have more kids. By year 12 or so, their kids are probably in high school, and then the yield starts to drop off after that. Now the chart on the right is merely to identify outliers. So something I want to point out, if you look at the chart on the left, year 11 for homes that are between $100,000 and $150,000. I'm so sorry, this is switching on its own. We're seeing a yield of 2, which is a really high yield in that category. But if you look on the chart on the right, you can see there's only 1 home in that category. So we do have a high yield there, a yield of 2. All that means is that there happens to be 2 kids coming out of that 1 home in that category. So that's what it shows on the right, just to identify some outliers. So what we've done is we've taken that total number on the chart on the left here, the one where it shows the yields by age, and plotted it on a chart. So what this chart shows is our yield model that we use to age every single home in the district through. So the gray line over there is your recorded yield. You can see there is a pretty clear trend of going up, up, up until we get to about year 13 or so, and then there's the trend of going down. The adjusted yield, the one in the red, is going to be what we actually used. We did kind of normalize those trends. You can see it's not as spiky clearly. So we normalize that to age houses through the system. Before I get into your totals, I just want to go through your yields by housing type. So for any subdivided single family home, you are seeing a static yield of 0.5, so that's exactly our example. 5 kids for every 10 homes, 1 kid for every 2. Apartments, you're seeing a yield of 0.32. Condos, you don't have a lot of condos in the district. You're seeing a yield of 0.08. Any manufactured home or mobile homes are seeing a yield of 0.25. Townhomes is 0.45. I believe there's actually only 1 or 2 townhome complexes within the district. And then all the non-subdivided single family homes, this is like farm lots and things like that, we're looking at a yield of 0.27. And that brings us to your overall yield of 0.41 students per household. The chart here shows the same information, just broken up by your future elementary boundaries, so you can see what the yield is for each boundary. So Etna, for example, is looking at a single family yield of 0.5, that's actually the average. For apartments, it's 0.24, condos 0.06, manufactured 0.29. There are no townhomes within the Etna elementary boundary, and then our non-subdivided single family is looking at 0.25. So this is where it gets exciting. This slide shows the developments that are either planned or active within the district. Something I want to point out about the I-70 developments just south of here is they haven't come out with numbers just yet about the number of units and things like that. So these are estimates based on zoning density allowances. They have come out and said that they're going to use 58 acres for single family housing and 42 acres for multifamily housing. So what we've done is kind of use the zoning allowances that are currently there. They could go through zoning changes, but at the time of this report, that is what we used. So we are seeing a lot of homes coming out of those. Just keep in mind those are estimates based on those zoning allowances. In total, over the next probably 10 years or so, you are looking at over 3,000 units planned to be built. What that boils down to, so we have our maximum student potential and our mature student potential. The maximum is when all of those homes are in that peak yield year. So after the home is built 13 years later, that's what that is showing, what you can expect from that. Our mature student potential is when the homes have all gone through our yield model based on where they, when they were built. So they've reached that 30 years. They have flattened out. They're a little bit less transient there. That's what that shows. So you're going to see a lot of growth, and then it will kind of normalize after a while. For the mature or the maximum student potential, I know that total number is kind of scary. It's almost 2,600. Something I want to point out with that is that does not include any timeline. So you're not going to see all of those kids at once. It's not like next year you're going to see 2,600 new students. That is definitely not the case. It is going to be 13 years from when the home is built. And keep in mind, in a lot of these developments, homes are built, either you can buy your custom lot and the home is built and who knows when it's going to be finished, or they do it in phasing. So you're not going to see all those kids at once, but it is something to plan for. So this map shows the developments within the district. So same information on the previous slide, just on a map. There's quite a few right around where we currently are. Like I said, the I-71 just south of here, and there's a couple north. Number 11, if you look, it's on the far west side. That is the development in Reynoldsburg, and there's one in Fairfield County just south of that. And then there's two just north of Broad Street. Those are right behind the Kroger. And one of those is going to be a build your custom home on a lot. So that you'll see less kids from that immediately, at least. So something else that we incorporate into this is that vacant developable land. I think this is a really important piece for your district because after those, 3,000 homes are built, I can't imagine it ending. So what we've done is we've looked at that land that is either already zoned for residential or land zoned for agriculture. What we found is land zoned for agriculture is usually the first to get switched to that residential land. And any land parcel that's greater than 5 acres. We have not included any flag lots. We've kind of figured out that those are not likely to sell. And then there's also quite a bit of land near Kirkersville Elementary School that is within more than 100-year floodplain. It's in a floodplain. It's kind of swampy. So we have not included any land out there because that is very difficult to develop. And when there's plenty of other land for developers, I can't imagine them going for that. So we do have 3 different models for this. And our models are based on the historical number of single-family housing units built per year. So if you look on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see we have the number of units built per year historically. So you can see in the early 2000s, there was a lot of building going on. We're seeing upwards of 350 units built a year. That has slowed down a little bit. You can see, I did conditionally format this as well, so you can see some blue in there. So you can see there's less development going on in like 2007, 2008, those years. But if you look toward the bottom, that's where we currently are. It is increasing. 2020 is still preliminary data, so that's why that number looks so low. I cannot imagine that number remaining the same. It's probably going to be closer to what was occurring in 2019. So with that vacant developable land, we do start to release that land and assume that it is going to go and turn into developments. We do this after the planned developments have already started through our model. So once the planned developments go through, about 5 years later is when we start releasing that vacant land, assuming that any new projects will probably start, they'll go through their municipal project or process, and then they'll start in about 5 years. So that is the point of the vacant developable land. It's not good probably to assume that it's just going to stop after all the planned development is built. So this does incorporate that, and with that you do have 12,891 acres of developable land that we've identified. So this is the exciting and maybe scary part. So we do, like I said, we have 3 different models. Our first model is going to be releasing 150 units per year of that vacant developable land. So something that doesn't change throughout the models is our existing single family, all of the existing homes. We are putting them through our model, but we're not adjusting them based on the 150, 200, and 250 units per year model. Along with that, we're also not adjusting the planned and active development. That is already on a timeline, so we are using the timelines that were given to us to put them through our model. So you can see over there, I wish. Do you mind if I step away and just point? Okay. So you can see right here, well, let's start at the bottom. This darker green right here is going to be your existing single family. And as you can see, there's not much growth that we're going to expect out of the existing. As we put them through the model, they do start to decrease. That is because the majority of those homes are in the later years of our model. So if a home is 20 years old, we are starting that home at our 20 year in the model. Any of the multifamily homes, we are leaving at a consistent yield. Multifamily living is historically a little bit more transient, so it's harder to apply a trend to that. This like sand color right here is going to be your non-subdivided single family. Again, that's another one that is a little bit harder to predict. So that one is left flat. You can see it kind of move through the system there. And then this lighter green is where we start to see that planned development. The lighter green shows your planned existing, or not existing, I apologize, your planned single family. And you can see the number of students that we're expecting start to come out from it and really start to take off. Our planned multifamily, again, we do apply a static yield to this. The planned multifamily is based on those yields I shared earlier based on the housing type. So if it's an apartment, we apply the apartment yield to it and so on. And then this blue up here is going to be your vacant developable land. So you can see we don't really start releasing units for sale until about year 5, and once we do, it takes off. Yeah. So should 150 units be built a year, you're looking at a maximum yield, and again, this is way far off, you're looking at a maximum enrollment of 9,553. But all of that to say that that's not going to happen until past 2,100. So I think
That is someone else's
you're in good
problem.
shape for that.
Payment.
Our mature enrollment is going to remain the same throughout all of these models. That's just because we're releasing the same amount of units. We're not changing the number of units being released. It's just the timeline where they're released. So the mature enrollment wouldn't happen until 2140, and that's almost 8,300 kids. And that is when we are thinking that your district is going to finally stabilize. So
Oh, God.
that's kind of what that means.
Those poor future boards.
Right.
Moving on to our next model. So this is 200 units a year. If you look between the two, you can see if we release more units a year, this assumes that 200 units would be released out of that vacant developable land per year. All it does is move our timeline forward. So we do have a bit higher maximum enrollment here. We're at 9,964, and that would happen in 2090. Our mature enrollment also happens a little bit sooner, but again, that 8,300 number. And then our last one is going to be 250 units built per year. Just like with the last one, we are seeing a bigger maximum enrollment, and it does happen sooner in this case. We're looking at 10,383 students in the year 2077. The mature enrollment, again, is going to be 8,300, and it's in 2106. So, should 250 units be built every year once the vacant developable land starts, this is kind of what you're looking at for enrollment.
Fantastic.
So, how does this impact you? What I'm showing here is the impact to your schools. So on the top, we have your enrollment projections and the student potential analysis split up. So what we typically tell people is for planning, we like to use the enrollment projections. They're a little bit more reliable in terms of the first probably 10 or so years. Once we get beyond that is when you're going to start looking at the student potential and seeing like how the housing is really impacting this. Like I said earlier, the enrollment projections and the student potential are both showing very similar values for the first 10 years. So enrollment projections in the short term, student potential in the long term for your planning purposes. So the top chart shows your enrollment by grade, what we're projecting. Once you get to that black line, I'm only showing your values in 5-year increments. So we're 2035, 2040, 2045, and so on until 2100. That's going to be an interesting one to say for them. The next table shows the capacities of your buildings. And this is showing it in real time. So as you are adding onto your buildings, doing renovations, replacing buildings, we are showing that in here. So a couple things I want to point out is that Watkins Intermediate opened this year. So we're looking 2020-21. We did increase that capacity this year. Next year, we're looking at the new high school opening, as well as the conversion of the current high school to middle school. So you can see those updated capacities there. They changed from last year to this year. And then 2 years out, we are looking at that Pataskala Elementary replacement. So that's why that capacity increases. And what all that boils down to is this, the table at the bottom, which shows your utilization by grade band. I understand that these numbers do look kind of scary, but something I want to point out is you're doing an excellent job of planning. My advice to you would be continue doing what you're doing. You are looking to the future. You are doing a facilities master plan. You have enrollment projections, you're looking at housing, and you're really you have a good grasp on what's going on in the district. So yes, we do have a couple little overutilizations in places, but that truly does not scare me just based on all of your planning efforts. I think you guys are doing an excellent job with your planning endeavors. And that is all I have for that. Do you have any questions about the student potential portion? I know it's kind of a lot of information that I just spewed at you.
It's been very insightful, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you explain that last graph, the bottom graph, the utilization?
Sure. So
Again.
what that is the enrollment divided by the capacity of the buildings.
Okay.
And something else I forgot to mention is that the capacity values, I'm only taking into account the permanent capacity, not your modular capacity.
Okay.
So if you have modulars on your sites, then that is not taken into account here. But yeah, what it boils down to is enrollment divided by capacity. You are doing pretty well for the first couple of years, and that's when our growth starts to explode a little bit.
So does it mean that in 2021-22, K through 3, we're going to be at 110% capacity?
Yeah, we're exceeding our capacity. Yep.
Permanent capacity.
But that's pre our renovated.
Right, so that's my question is, why doesn't it drop in 2023, 2024?
Because we're not building that much bigger of a building. It's only about 500 kids. 550. The new elementary is going to be 552.
It drops, I guess it drops a little bit.
It drops a little bit, but not, you're talking about from
Not-
459 to 552. You're talking about 100 kids more.
The new elementary, we decided how big it was gonna be already?
Well, 552 is what's been planned, and
Oh, I didn't know.
that's
there was a
based on the
plan.
$24 million budget.
Yeah, that's, anything over that's gonna be over budget.
If we want to go bigger than that, then we got to get more money.
And enrollment production, we're going up 71 kids in the K through 3 that year.
Okay.
We go from 1526 to 1593.
Yep.
So we're not building enough to make
Yep.
that difference
Yep.
up.
And our high school is already out.
Yeah, remember that high school, we have planned for an addition,
Right.
because all the core spaces are big enough. It's
Right.
enough for 1,600 kids.
Which we were gonna do at Pataskala at the new elementary. We were gonna build the core spaces larger for potential expansion as well.
Yes.
And I do think that is the right thing to do. Like I said, you are doing all of the right things. So kudos to you, because a lot of districts are not.
Part of this, so you know, in the further agenda, we do have asked the board to approve a contract with them, a 3-year contract to continue updating this
Yeah.
for the next 3 years to, you know, at least the next 3 years to help us plan.
And then do we get a report yearly, two times? Is it a 1 year?
I believe so. I'm not
Okay.
usually involved in the contracts, but I'm fairly certain it would include what you got today as well as the board presentation and things like
Okay.
that.
I'm just thinking this would be a valuable tool the next time we go to the voters to somehow put this in layman's terms to say, you know, here's what we're projecting, and with a legitimate company that can do this and is fairly accurate in your predictions. It would be a valuable tool for justifying what we're asking for.
I agree, Roger.
Yeah, I think the sooner we get information into the public's hands so they can start to educate themselves and understand what we're looking at.
And yeah, I mean, this is without rezoning and things like that, which, I mean, I don't understand why we consider rezoning when we're already looking at the impact that we have right now.
It's definitely not getting any smaller.
No.
No, not anytime soon. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it. If you want to leave, you don't have to stay. If you don't want to, it's up to you.
One thing I did want to share or add, I'm trying to find the slide. I don't know if you have it up on your computer or not, but the slide where she discussed the new developments. So I did reach out to Etna Township regarding the I-70 development, because when I initially had met with them, the zoning wasn't complete, and so they didn't have any numbers to give me. When they gave us these numbers, obviously that was very shocking and to me. So I did reach out to Etna Township and spoke with them about the I-70 development and shared these numbers based on the zoning allowances. And I was told that absolutely not, that it would not be this high, and the max capacity, I'm just putting it out
I'm sorry,
there.
yeah,
I'm just putting it out there to share.
Must
so
have
we all
something in my
know.
eye.
The max capacity was about half. I mean, it's a little over 1,000 what they're current projecting, and it was about 460 some at max capacity, is what I was told by Etna Township. So I just want to share that with all of you.
So they're saying only 400.
It was a little bit more than that, 400
Roughly.
some odd. But they're saying that is not happening.
Do we have that in writing?
It's way too
I was
many.
getting ready to ask
I
the
do
same
not, but I could ask them to get it.
Absolutely.
I could do that.
And we're talking about the I-70 development here?
Correct. Because when I initially met with Etna to go through all the developments and the numbers that they gave me, that was not zoned yet, so they couldn't give me anything.
Okay.
So then when I received these numbers, I was bothered. Just, it's huge.
Right.
So I reached back out to them to discuss it. So
Hopefully it's not 1,000. Hopefully it's closer to 500. That
yeah,
would
that's.
help.
I mean, that's what they said.
I mean, 4-0.
But I just wanted to, just make you aware of the conversation I had regarding that particular development. That's not going to make or break in the scheme of things what's presented here tonight and the growth that's coming. But
And once we get the actual numbers, they can update that for us.
Yep.
And give us a better
yes,
feel.
absolutely, they'll do that.
So realistically, how long can we sustain where we are?
Well, I think we have to look at that and the enrollment and the current buildings, and then I think we're going to have to. We're not going to be able to support with any more, most likely, additions or buildings with our budget. So we're going to have to talk about when we need to go back to the voters.
We also are working with Carl Miller to put a master plan together. So
That's next.
they had this information. They're
Okay.
working on the master plan to help us get a better feel when we should need to go after more buildings and that kind of thing for a while. So,
So yeah, that will be coming next.
okay.
And most likely sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've already been talking with them. And
Okay.
Yes, correct.
All right.
I think it would be important for our voters to continue to encourage our partners, meaning the entities that are zoning the properties, to encourage them to know that when they're zoning, that they are truly affecting where we're headed. They're significantly affecting where we're headed and their tax dollars. Obviously that we're the largest part of their tax dollars, and the significance of that zoning is great when those decisions that they're making when they're zoning are larger than
Yeah.
what they're.
Not only does it impact us, it directly impacts everyone, whatever governmental entity you live in, because we have
Correct.
so many within this district.
Correct, absolutely.
It's, it may seem great to you, but when it spreads out, it becomes problematic.
Absolutely.
Right, right. Yes, and changing zoning is a huge problem.
Absolutely. So just,
Especially when you think, oh, well, 50 how, one development doesn't seem much, but when you add it up exponentially, at some point, we've got to educate these kids, and we have to have facilities to do that. And once the
And
community gets to see this chart, and the data's pretty clear.
Well, and if you note that when you look at that slide that had all the developments coming in, everyone talks about having a school, in Kirkersville or Harrison Township, but it's all coming in Etna primarily.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
where we're going to be hit, is in
Yep.
Etna.
Yeah. And I think this is going to be a good educational tool, like Roger, you said, for the taxpayers to understand. It's not about the district building big buildings for the sake of doing that. It's because we have a potential of 1,000 residents
Right.
in one I-70 development. And taxpayers need to understand and go to their zoning and talk to the people on the zoning to say, I don't want to pay for another school, stop rezoning.
right.
Because the tax revenue will not keep up with what it's going to cost us to build these things and educate these
It's
kids.
not just
Yeah,
building
this is-
the
yeah,
buildings, it's operating them too.
And operate,
Yeah, that's what I was
absolutely.
going to say. This is just the building side, not the
Yeah.
operating costs to go with it. Yeah.
Yep.
So this was a very eye-opening conversation and presentation.
So hopefully we'll be back sooner than later with the master plan
Good.
and our suggestions, recommendations.
Appreciate that. Does anyone have any other conversation regarding this? None? All right, well, we will go from that to student and staff of the quarter presentations. Nice job. And while that was incredible, I am super excited that it seems like perhaps next school year we'll actually be able to go back to the live ceremonies. But everyone who got something there, congratulations. As the slide said, we are very proud of you. Thank you very much. All right. With that said, we're going to give the Teamsters an opportunity to speak again. And Southwest Licking Education Association. Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes.
Motion for A and B?
Second.
Any discussion? None? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes?
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes, that passes. We'll move on to the financial report.
Motion to approve 5A?
Second.
Mr. Jones?
Included with the agenda is the executive summary for April 30th, 2021. Fairly routine month. Our final income tax settlement came in a little higher than we expected again. So year to date, our income tax came in about 6.6% higher than we expected. Remember, we did expect a minus 5%. We actually got about a plus 1% increase through the pandemic. So that's awesome news. The other thing revenue-wise is we did expect to get our homestead and rollback found from Licking County in the month of April. We didn't get it. We should get it in May. That's a little over $1 million. So I fully expect that to be in where we expect to be at. So right now, expenditure-wise, we're running really well. We're running about $1.5 million ahead of where we anticipate being at this time. So that's a great news. With only about a month and a half of school left, we should be in good shape at the end of the year.
Okay. Fantastic. Questions? Okay, Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. Accepted that. We'll move on to agenda item C, personnel consent, personnel consent calendar. I think we could
Can we do
maybe
them
take
all?
all of them.
Yeah, A through O. Motion
Yes.
to
Yeah.
approve 6A through O.
Second.
Questions?
Just a couple things. The salary schedule in there are based on the same percent raises that was negotiated with the teachers union. Same thing with addendums. The job descriptions, we had received them a couple years back from Whittle as part of an agreement. We just never really got them board approved, so we're trying to get all these board approved, these new up-to-date job descriptions that we use from this point forward for our positions.
All right. Questions? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Ziny,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes, that passes. We will move on to business items. Do you want to take them separately? Can we take them all at
You can
once?
take them all at once if you want.
Okay.
I move items 7A through E.
Bless you.
Seven.
A through
Well,
E.
I thought it was 8A through D.
No, we're on 7.
Are we on 7 still?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
bad. Second, then. I'm ahead.
Hey, it's been that kind of a night. I skipped over the presentations. So we're good.
Okay, first thing, certificates of participation. This is the resolution that allows the school district to issue debt in the form of certificates of participation for the construction of a new elementary school, for approximately $5 million for Pataska Elementary renovation, $2 million for, originally this is a plan, Kirkersville Elementary, and another $1 million probably used for tennis courts. Part of the, there's considered with the bidding atmosphere right now is bad. I know our high school just came in over budget with the bids. We have a GMP, I'm not sure how far over, but we know right now there will be no bid day savings, and we know a couple things that we know of is the high school, which is not part of this, but it could be, is, you know, we do have $2 million extra for the high school. Robson did not include about $400,000 of stuff that should have been included. They missed in their GMP. I forget what exactly those 2 items were, but they missed it. They told us after the fact. It was moved to the alternate list. We know there's no kitchen equipment. Any renovations of the kitchen, that was part of, this is all part of what we was gonna do anyways, probably. The only thing that wasn't originally on the alternate list was those last 2 things. And I can't remember what those 2 were.
Okay, wait, when you say high school, do you mean the renovation?
From
of
high
the
school to middle school
Okay,
renovation.
thank you.
I
I'm like,
apologize.
what? It's opening in
The
like-
high school to middle school renovation. So the bidding, it's a bad environment, and then based that $2 million might go really fast, and we not get everything we want. There's a very good possibility of that. So part of that, go ahead.
Okay, can I ask, I thought the whole GMP thing was like guaranteed.
Yes.
It is guaranteed, but not the alternate. So anything alternates,
But
we have
if
to pay
it
for.
wasn't an alternate,
Yeah, if it wasn't
should've
supposed
been-
to
It
be
wasn't
an
supposed to
alternate.
be, but I don't know
Yeah.
if we have to fight that legally, but it came
Yeah.
back after the board approved it. That,
and they've used all of their contingency?
well, we haven't got that far yet. We're still working on bidding and stuff, but so there is a possibility that we're not going to be able to get everything we want in that high school and middle school renovation because of the bidding environment right now. They're saying everything's about 20% higher than it was before.
It is.
We're running into the issue with Kirkersville. At SD, it was $2.7 million over budget. We were planning on getting $2 million. So they really, when we get the SD in here, they really cut the budget. A lot of alternates to get, so because we don't have the $2 million yet, we will have it. But I'm concerned, Robson's saying now, based on the bids of the high school, middle school renovations, they're gonna probably up the Kirksville budget by 20%. Which means that $2 million might go really fast too and not get the building we want.
And prior to the $2 million, we've taken out, I mean, Kirkersville is getting,
Right now, Kirksville's been wrapped, but yeah, it's been pretty much gutted. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, warm, safe, dry
Really?
is about all there is for Kirksville.
that's where we're at right now.
You know, because again, you know, and the SD even with the board is going to be approving it's still 5% over budget, but they could be within 5% at SD phase to move into the next DD. So part of the thoughts are originally we were asking for $20 million. I'm proposing maybe going to 22 now, let me go back again, the new intermediate school. Originally when we were budgeting at $23 million, they're using about $275, $280 per square foot. It's over $300 a square foot now. So the building that we want now at 552 is now a $24 million building. And that's not based on this current bidding environment. This is based on $300. And that 24 million is $1 million more than originally planned. So the thought maybe is go to 22 million, get an extra $1 million for the new elementary school. So we have 24 million, but possibly another $1 million that could be used at Kirkersville or at the high school, and maybe we need to go another couple mil. But the resolution is asking to approve up to 25 million. That number just threw out there right now until we know more. The plan as of right now, the last plan in case I talked was 22 million. The extra 2 million is one extra $1 million for the new elementary school, potentially extra $1 million for Kirkersville. Now that we know the bid prices for the high school, you know, there may be, well, once we know it, there may be a need to get more money there. The state's not giving us more money. Like Mr. Janelle said today, our master plan, when it was done, was based on like $265, and the new master plans are over $300. So we're also covering, no, it was $240, because he said we're covering $60 extra too on top of our local share and our LFI right now because we're not getting any more money from the state. So there is some concern. We want to make sure that money is there for Pataskla.
Right.
That was the plan. I want to keep $5 million. What we can get $5 million, hopefully we can get the warm, safe, dry code for Pataskla. But trying to get the other money for their buildings is the kind of the making sure. So right now the resolution is up to 25. We're looking at 22 at this point, unless your board has a total objection to that. And then if you want to go lower, 22 was the extra $80,000 a year. I thought we could absorb that because we were 100,000 over what I anticipated being once I did the calculation. So I thought we can absorb, and we probably could go all the way to 25 and absorb it. We'd have to use just some more of the funds from the JEDs and JEDZs because we know more is coming in, and possibly use some of the funds for the solar project. We know if it gets in too. So kind of keep, we're looking at 22 million number. So is there any questions about the resolution up to 25? We're looking at 22, depending where the high school comes in. Maybe have to get the building and grounds committee together and say, or finance committee and say, what's your thoughts? Do we want to go for more? But right now this gives us 25. So second B is the enrollment projection. Again, it's an agreement with them for 3 years. It's about 18,000 a year. No, 19,800 per year. But again, we get that full updated numbers, full president. We have to keep a handle on this, especially with how fast we're growing. If these buildings, if the I-70 comes in at 500 versus 1,000, or if it comes in 1,200, you just never know. We need that. We need their expertise, and I think their presentation tonight was very eye-opening, and it's the kind of information we can go back to our communities now and say, this is when we're going to need a new building. This is when we're going. We can do that now.
Had we ever done one of those before?
No, that was the first time I've ever seen
Okay.
student potential. Kirkersville Elementary, this is the phase submission for Kirkersville and LFI MOU. So basically, it's within 5% of the budget. The building has been stripped. There's probably about 40 alternates. I don't even think they're even painting right now. It's just warm, safe, dry, basically. And so, but we're planning on getting $2 million more, already. They should cover some of those alternates. It just depends on the bid atmosphere when we bid. But I'm really nervous because they originally came in at 2.7. So that was both Garner Miller and Robson. They were both that high on the original design of the building, what they thought it was going to cost.
I have a question about how this works. When you said for the middle school renovation, high school renovation to the middle school, that they things that we said were must-haves were moved without our knowledge to an alternate?
Yeah, what my understanding was, Robson gave us a GMP for the building, board-approved GMP. When Robson went back, supposedly they missed 2 things in their GMP.
Okay.
That totaled $400,000.
Is there not, is there someone on our end, is that not the owner agent's responsibility to check to make sure that everything was captured that was supposed to be? Because I feel like this happened to Aetna with the heater thing and the air moving handler, and it's kind of feels repetitive and frustrating.
I don't know. I don't think the owner agent knows what Robson, they should know what's in their GMP, but that's a document that's created by Robson, 200-300 pages. But they do get a chance to review it.
Check and balances.
Yeah, there's somewhere along the line. I don't know where that's at. This is actually the first project there's actually been a GMP in place before we bid, which is how the process is supposed to work.
Right. Yeah.
So this is kind of running into this, and that's the question I have to ask Nathan with the high school facilities, Jones, because we're still up in the air how $400,000 could have got missed.
It's not acceptable.
I agree. There's like a lack of check and balances somewhere.
We're having lots of problems with Robertson though.
Okay.
This is one very large example of a lot of issues.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of issues, a lot of disagreeing and arguing
and I'm bringing this up now because we're talking about the Kirkersville, you're asking us to approve this, but are we sure that this is like
at this point,
something missing that we need to worry about?
Yeah, we need this to move forward to the next stage, DD. It's got to keep going.
Okay.
So DD is more, this is a real high level review. DD, they get more detailed in the design and specs and that kind of thing. So we're hoping everything's that we got to rely on Garner Miller too to catch this stuff too.
Right.
And hopefully it's all in there. I think they believe it's all in there.
I guess my thought when this whole process started, the owner agent was supposed to be the conduit between the building people and us, the owners. That's why she's our agent, as well as the state partner.
Right.
And I just kind of feel like, I don't know if I'm not trying to put any kind of point any figures, but somewhere there's a breakdown in my opinion.
I'll have to find out. I'm not sure what responsibility. No, the owner agent does a lot of the budgeting part and that kind of thing. reviewing. I don't know how much they have in there, how much say. I don't think they have any say of Robson. Robson does. But I don't know where in reviewing documents where that's at. I'll have to ask that question.
So
Find out
do
for
we
sure.
know what items were missed for 400?
Bob
We
said,
do, we just, I can't remember.
I
off the top
cannot
of my head.
remember
We've
what the
got
two
so
things
many
are.
Were they
lists of items.
significant things, or?
I mean, there's, right now, when Rick says warm, safe, and dry, there's anything else you'd think of to make a building nice has been removed.
So, knowing that we're having issues with Robertson, and we've had issues with Robinson in the past, is there a way that we don't have to use Robertson?
We don't have to for the new elementary.
Right.
Well, we're asking that, and Robson doesn't know that now. They might know now. But, I mean, we're talking with the state about that part for the new building.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, I remember in the very beginning, there was different models. There's CMR,
Right.
there's single prime, there's multi-prime. You know, our preference really was to go with the single prime, but the state really wanted to go with the CMR model, which is what we are. We want to switch to a single prime model for the new building. And, which means we think there'll be more competition at that place at that time, because we just feel like there'll be more competition and pricing may be better. We're hoping. There's no guarantee, but we're hoping. We just don't, what I don't know is how far the high school and middle school renovation is over. Robson hasn't told us. They said it's over. You know, by theory, they have to eat anything over budget. I don't know what that, you know, we're not allowed to see the bids. We haven't seen the bids. We don't know how far it's over. Robson's just saying it's over.
So we have to take them at their word?
Right now, until we get the bid documents.
No, if they're leaving stuff out, we don't take them by their word. What else can we do? What other options are there?
I'll ask Nathan. I mean, right now,
Yes.
they just keep hiding. We don't know what the bids are.
This is crazy.
We don't know where they came in at. They said they're over budget. I'll follow up with Mr. Janelle on what those items were. He said maybe it was flooring or something, but I know it totaled $400,000
Yeah,
that we
if
had
you
to
could
move
get
all.
that list to
And
us.
maybe
Yes.
a June 3rd release of certain things, maybe we should be bringing back presentations with people so we can ask questions directly.
Yeah.
Yep, it doesn't hurt. You know, with everything going forward, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
trying
not
to
a bad
put
idea.
this in simplistic language. So what I'm hearing is they said, after GMP, they said there's $400,000 that's, we just have to,
We forgot.
right.
And they
we
forgot to add. They said they forgot to include their GMP number.
So we are just supposed to sit on our hands and say, okay? I mean, that's
they
putting
added-
that in simplistic terms. Is
Yeah,
that-
they added it to the alternate list.
Crazy.
Hoping that maybe the bids came in cheaper and they'd be money to cover it. That hasn't happened that way. There is some concern because Mr. Janelle felt that the items that were missed were talked about the whole process long. So, you know, it could have been very well been an honest mistake. It was missed. It could have been concern
That's
over the
not a-
bid
when you're in a
environment.
contract, that's not a mistake.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. This is a huge contract for them, in
It
my
is.
opinion. And there's got to be someone somewhere that sits at a desk and does this. Okay, is this here? Yes. Is that there? No. Oh, we better add that. Like, it's a compliance thing for me.
You would think that, but even just a simple example of the magnetic door holders, they removed. We said we wanted them to stay at Aetna. They removed them, which we told them not to do.
What?
Then they got rid of them, and now we have to decide how we're going to make that right when they screwed up. It's constant things like this. I'm telling you, it's crazy, and
That
it's
is
non.
crazy.
But I feel like
it's
we
nonstop.
shouldn't-
We try to.
We shouldn't be.
We shouldn't be
us.
making them right. They should be making it right.
Yes.
It sounds like they're dictating,
Yes.
and I don't like that.
I don't.
We don't do well with things.
I don't know.
No.
So there's some things that, you know,
I mean, are we the customer at some point? Like,
Yeah, because see, here's the thing. I work on the other side of this in my real job. Like, this is my real job. Did you hear all that? And
in your income earning job.
in my income earning job, yeah, there you go. I like that so much better. And if I forget something on a quote, yeah, I have to eat that.
Yes.
Wait,
Like-
you own it? Is that what I'm
That's
hearing?
what yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Responsibility.
yeah.
it doesn't work that way in construction. I know
Well,
the
what-
state.
No,
Can
and
we
that's
do
in
to fix
that's in like construction.
I know,
I-
I'm just saying,
that's
I'm just knowing,
Yeah.
we have something like contractor,
That's
if a
an
contractor submits a
electrical
subcontractor's bid
design
and they miss it, no, we gotta cover it.
I
Yeah,
know.
I
Yeah,
just
no.
don't accept that answer that it
No,
just
so
doesn't
I'm
work that
wondering
way.
if we need to see what sort of legal remedies we have.
Yes,
Yeah, I think I can follow up with Bob, because
Because-
Bob wasn't, Mr. John was not happy with it, neither were we.
No, yeah, he's been very
Um,
frustrated.
And maybe I'll try to call and get a meeting with them next week, with
we
Nathan
maybe
and
have-
Bob and Julia and Hill with OFCC and say, what can we do? Because
we're not accepting this. We are not
Right.
Do
accepting
you
your
want one of
mistake.
us to be there too?
we'll see if I can get it, and I get one of you available too to talk about it. Just,
And could we maybe have Julie back at our meeting next month and Bob?
we can have everybody back next
Yeah, I
month.
think that's
Okay.
a good idea.
And maybe we need to continue that monthly instead of,
Right.
Yeah, because, probably next month you'll be approving the bids for the new high school, and the high school and middle school renovation. Those bids will be coming to you sometime eventually.
Where can we find information of what has been left out or moved to alternates or taken away?
We can,
Where do we have that?
we can get that. for
Yeah,
you.
Bob,
Sure,
I mean,
Bob will have it.
We
I
have
would
the
like
alternate.
that.
We have the alternate list
agree.
with those two things, and
The bid packages are all online. I
Right.
mean, I've seen our bid packages get released, so you can go online and see it. It's all open bid information. So, I mean,
if you know where, because
Yes.
right now Robson,
we can.
they won't
you
let us.
can
We haven't seen it.
Somebody should be able to see it. So,
did they say why?
yeah.
They're still working on it because it's over budget. Supposedly they're reaching out to contractors who said they were going to bid. They didn't bid. They're reaching out to them to bid,
Which is, yeah.
I think
which
we
seems
need
like kind of odd that they're.
Well, it seems
Yeah,
odd.
which you
I mean,
shouldn't
So,
do.
because
Maybe
you
there's
know,
a
it's like
reputation
unless you're
brewing.
sharing the cost, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they're not sharing the price of the ones that did bid. I
Yeah, you
don't.
shouldn't
I
do
wouldn't
that
think
after
they
the
were doing
fact.
that, but that's what Clay's email from Robson said, that they were reaching out to the vendors who didn't bid, but said they were going to and trying to get them to bid.
With the cost of material the way it is, which legitimately material is going up exponentially. I mean, steel and lumber and all of that is going up like nobody's
Concrete.
is going
I
up.
got a quote for a patio back in the fall, and now
And
the
it
spring
is. I mean,
it's
2x4s
different.
have, skyrocketed. So, is there anything that we? I mean, I don't know that we can do this, but we have renovations on. Can we get like a step ahead? Can we start? Can we go ahead and start the next part of project so we could get in, moving on the bidding, or could we fast forward?
I mean, that's
Does that
what
make
that's what
sense?
they're working on in Kirkersville now. SD. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You have to
Does
go
that
to
make sense?
SD. Yeah,
Okay.
and so you have to go through SD, DD, GMP.
All right, so-
Before
Now
you
I'm
bid.
starting to question if the bids aren't coming because there's a reputation at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not. The email said from our members that they didn't have very good bid turnout. They're over budget. They were reaching out to contractors who said they were going to bid who didn't bid to try to get them to bid. And that's all we know.
Yet in the meantime, they're throwing away things that we've specifically asked them not
Right.
to.
Right.
Yeah, that was for Etna Elementary, yes.
That can't be the only thing.
I'm
No,
sure
that's
it's
just,
not.
that's
I
just.
mean, who
an
does
example.
that?
That's why I'm saying,
Those
here's
things
this
were
list
bought
so
for
we can
by
see
the
it.
community. I mean,
Yeah, they'll probably have to cover.
certain
They probably have
things
to cover it with their CMR contingency, but I'm guessing that's how it's going to be paid for. But
This should not be happening.
I don't disagree. I just
Because isn't the contingency
we're all in. I
supposed to
think
come
we're
back
all
to
in
us?
agreement with
We don't
that.
give it
So
any-
I'll get more information about the
Yeah.
400,000, why it was not included when we should have thought it was. We'll have a meeting with Nathan and with OFCC Hill ourselves, even maybe Garvin Miller, to figure out what happens, what remedy is there. How can they say it was in there, then now it's not in there? That just
Right.
seems a little.
And then
can
we'll put
we-
together a plan for who needs to come and present next time.
And we're pursuing, do we need to, with the new build, continue
That's
on
all. That's part of their request with
our
the OFCC
relationship? Correct.
to switch it from Pataskett to the new elementary, is to go to single prime.
And I don't know if there's a etiquette way of doing it, but again, send the message out to Robertson that we're not messing around. And we will pursue legal recourse.
Deb, were you on the Buildings and Grounds
Yes.
last time with me and we
Yes,
had that meeting?
Yes, we had the Come to Jesus meeting. And They seem to straighten up a little bit, maybe, kinda,
Yeah.
a percentage?
They did it through the correct process.
Right, right, they gave us what we signed up for. Yeah, like I said, I don't know what the etiquette is for sending that message, but maybe you could share it with Mr. Janelle and let him know that we're not upset and he can share it.
Oh, he has no
Right.
problem sharing that with Robinson, is
Good.
my understanding. So we'll work on that information and get it to you and set up a meeting, and I'll let you know more. But again, Kirkwoodville, this is to get us moving into the next step, which is design development. So, and then the next one, D, Dan, World of Wonderment. If you remember, YMCA was doing wraparound services for us. We had to cut it down to one room because we needed it. Well, they stopped doing it. They didn't do it all this year. So we terminated the agreement because there's a part of the agreement with them that talked about abandonment. They didn't do it. We sent them a letter, it's canceled. World of Wonderment does our latchkey program, and they are wanting to come in and do the wraparound latchkey program. So we do have an agreement with them for latchkey, but the wraparound preschool is different. So this is an addendum to their contract to allow them to come in to do the latchkey program. It's basically some of the requirements are the same as YMCA. They're paying us $600 a month for all of our buildings during the year. They suggested $600 again for preschool also. Anything you want to add, Dan? So we want somebody back in here for the wraparound services if possible. World of Wonderment's willing to do it, and we want to be able to do that. So I asked the board to approve that addendum. And the last one is the board policy first reading, and just updating the organizational chart. We've created some new positions that were not reflected on the old organizational chart. So we wanted to update it to as what we know now. So are there any questions on that? So I know this taking a little longer, but I wanted to make sure you understood where we are with certificates of participation and everything else going on. Be glad to answer any more questions.
It's been a fun meeting.
Sorry, I just had to get that out.
All right. So any discussion from you all about the 25 million, 22, anything?
Up tier is not, right now we're playing on 22. If we go higher, I'll pull together the finance committee or building grounds to talk about that.
And you feel either direction, we have the capability for the payback, I'm assuming, no matter which way, if we would go to 22 or to 25.
Yeah, I believe we do, yes.
You're fine
I
as
feel
far as
comfortable with that,
you're
yes.
comfortable, okay. Okay.
That's an important fact.
Okay, that is, yeah. I wouldn't think you'd do it, but I just wanted to get that out there just to make sure. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes,
Mr. Vincent.
Yes, that passes. We will move on to the treasure item, 5-year forecast.
Now we're on 8. A through D, and that's my motion.
We're sticking to it. Is there a second?
second.
Okay.
Talking too much. 5-year forecast, basically it's very close to what I submitted in November. The only changes really is I upped I put the property tax in what we actually received, our income tax. We got the full dollar amounts for a year. So I updated it to reflect those dollar amounts. We're doing, again, the projection to be doing pretty good. It doesn't reflect any of the expenditure savings we're seeing right now because we're ahead. We're spending less than we projected. That's not in the forecast yet because we're not through the year. I can't guarantee it'll stay that way. I believe it will. So I only put in things I know, and that's the income tax and the property tax. Again, we're doing really well based on the forecast. We're still projecting negative spending, but not quite as bad. So we're still looking at by year 5 being about $3.9 million negative cash flow based on current projections. A lot of that we pretty much have school foundation, which is the big one. We pretty much have it flatlined, kind of going back to 2019 levels and just leave it the same. So which would be a little bit increase from where we are now. That's a big one.
This is current foundation. This isn't Cup Patterson or anything
No,
like
the Cup Patterson, we don't know that. The Cup Patterson, the original estimate, once it's fully phased, we would get about $2 million more. But that's year 6. Year 1, actually, we was gonna get a little less, the way it worked out. But again, unless it's implemented, we won't know. But the full number eventually about 2.8, what they were showing at that time. But the safe bet is to flatline it, because until we know for sure.
Absolutely.
Property taxes, we're still we are growing. Homes are coming. We're going to see increase in property, tax collections. And everything else is donations. We appreciate those, statements of purposes, and then now certificates. And so,
I have a question on the donation, just a pure curiosity. How close are we to paying off the athletic scoreboard?
give me a quick moment.
I am merely curious.
It's been 3 years.
At least 2.5.
I'm thinking it's been 3 years, and so I bet there's 2 more years.
Yeah, just give me a quick here.
I just feel like every month there's at least 500 for that. I know
Yeah.
it's several tens of
Yeah,
thousands, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, just give me again.
You can send it to me later, Rick. It's fine.
I just had to find it on here because I don't have it saved. Last time I was looking, I was thinking it's about 190, but it might have been. It's been a little while since I looked. Cash. About another minute, and I'll have it for you. We're at minus 137, so
Okay.
We're getting there.
we're getting there.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Jones?
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes. That passes. We'll move on to superintendent items. Miss Dr. Perkins.
I'm gonna put that. So you may have already, I believe, Dr. Moore distributed these, correct? Tanya? You sent these out, right? These have already gone to the kids. Okay, so you may have seen these come home with your kids, but we put out the save the dates and I sent that to you guys all in an email for August 8th. This is the one that went home with all K through 8 students. The next step will be an invite, a save the date invite will be emailed to who would be considered VIP, which is actually a lot of people, but that will be at 1 o'clock. That's when the ribbon cutting will be. So we'll have the ribbon cutting followed by the tours. So we'll be sending out a save the date once that entire list is compiled, and I'll obviously be reaching out to everyone to make sure no one's missing on that list. And then we'll follow that up with a formal invitation to all of those guests. We just kind of want them to get on their calendar now, so we can start working on who can come, so we know speakers and all of that kind of good stuff. And so this one home with the kids, we'll start pumping things out on social media. We just want to make sure we have a chance for the entire community if they want to come in and see both schools at that time. There will be a lot of student involvement at both levels. Kids will be doing tours. We'll have some band. We'll have some choir. There'll be a lot of kids too. So it should be really exciting.
Good.
I'm trying to get to have it. So we'll primarily we'll have it. The ribbon cutting will be at the high school because the intermediate has already obviously opened, but there will be again the opportunity to go through tours in the building. So we're kind of working on all the plans behind the scenes, and again, next steps will be finishing that list and then emailing the save the dates for the ribbon cutting to the VIP members, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Awesome.
Any questions on that or thoughts?
Just doesn't even seem real.
I just have a comment. I know that there was a handful of people at the high school working on some kind of cool things, and I know Deb's kids participated in this, but there was a picture of all the kids from like 2000 and with the holding little graduation year signs, and I think it probably had 25, 30 kids in it. And thoughts about maybe recreating with the same group of kids. Some of the kids moved away, so we'd have to have, and I'm sure some of them aren't going to be able, but it was pretty exciting to think about. Some of those kids are long gone, and some of the little ones are like in middle school and high school, so it's kind of cool. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, any ideas? If anyone has any, email or call or let me know, but I think it'll be nice. I just want to save the dates out sooner than later, so people that we want to make sure out there ribbon cutting can attend, hopefully.
Seems
That's it for me.
awesome. Okay. Request to speak on non-agenda items. Teamsters. Slee. All right. Next, we have an executive session.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Second.
And this is a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purpose of employment of public employees. We have a first, we have a second. Mr. Jones.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes, we are in executive session.
We're good.
Okay. Call this meeting back into order. It is 8:56. We are out of executive session. And we have
We need to do roll call first.
Oh, sorry. And we need to roll call. So, Mr. Jones, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Engel,
Here?
Mrs. Moore,
Here.
Mrs. Spindler,
Here?
Mr. Zani,
Here.
Mr. Vincent.
Here, a quorum is still present, so we will progress. And we need to do the evaluation of the superintendent and evaluation of the treasurer. I will go ahead and comment on our evaluations. And what'd you say?
Do we need a motion for this?
We have it in the past.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So the board has evaluated the superintendent and has determined that Dr. Perkins is doing an exemplary job. This year has posed many challenges, and her steady leadership has kept the district progressing forward. Our district has led the area in innovative educational opportunities this year under her guidance. So thank you, Dr. Perkins.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we also evaluated the treasurer. The board has evaluated the treasurer and has determined that Mr. Jones is doing a commendable job. We appreciate his financial leadership this year and his continued dedication to the staff and taxpayers of this district. So thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
And with that said, we are out of agenda items, so that must mean it is time to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Jones.
Mrs. Spindler,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Zani,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent.
Yes, we are adjourned at 8:58.